To be a Christian in the world today means being faithfully different. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. This is Breakpoint. Now, it should go without saying that in 21st century America, most of the assumptions at work in contemporary culture are not Christian ones. The new normal is anything but Christian and anything but worldview neutral. As my friend, author Natasha Crain puts it in her new book, Faithfully Different, quote, "We're in a culture where feelings are the ultimate guide, happiness the ultimate goal, judging the ultimate sin, and God is the ultimate guess." Well, this means that Christians today are called to a daunting task, to believe, to think, to live in a way that is contrary to widely accepted beliefs and practices. We are called to be a worldview minority, even at times among others who call themselves Christians. In her punchy and accessible new book, Natasha Crain helps Christians embrace this calling while resisting the false assumptions that dominate our culture. It's called Faithfully Different, Regaining Biblical Clarity in a Secular Culture. It's a terrific guide for those who wish to maintain Christian identity and Christian confidence in the face of a pervasive secularism. Now, of course, the very first step to faithfully living as a worldview minority is to establish that we are, in fact, a worldview minority. After all, Pew Research's Religious Landscape Study still shows that about 65% of Americans identify as Christians. However, surveys that look closer at actual beliefs and practice give a much clearer picture about what's going on. In her interview with my colleague Shane Morris on a recent episode of the Upstream podcast, Natasha Crain pointed to the recent results from the American Worldview Inventory, which is conducted by George Barna in Arizona Christian University. According to that survey, just 6% of Americans hold what he calls, quote, a functional biblical worldview, which means they gave recognizably Christian answers to basic questions like, who is God? What are human beings? And is there absolute truth? Among respondents between the ages of 18 and 29, only 2% had a functional biblical worldview. Now, that kind of extreme minority status means that there's constant pressure being put on Christians right now to live in a secular way and to hide beliefs that our neighbors find unthinkable or unbelievable. Even worse, there's strong temptation to join in the cultural scorn right now being heaped on historic Christian faith and morality, and to even follow the example of the many public authors, entertainers, and pastors that are deconstructing a former faith. This book, Faithfully Different, is a clarion call for Christians to intentionally push back on that pressure. In 12 very rich but readable chapters, Crain identifies and challenges the primary assumptions that are held in our secular culture and then reasserts the Christian alternative as better and true. Now, in full disclosure, Natasha Crain asked me to write the foreword for this book, Faithfully Different, and I did so gladly after reading it. Here's a portion of what I wrote. Quote, all humans are, in many important ways, shaped by cultures. Our fashions, tastes, beliefs, so many other things about us reflect the social environments into which we are born and live. In fact, a culture is most powerful in shaping us by what it makes seem normal. If you've ever traveled to another country, you've likely experienced the feeling of seemingly being in a different world. You're not, of course. You're in a different culture, a place imagined and built differently by a different group of people. That's what humans do. We build worlds within the world. In recent decades, the Western world, and especially the United States, has shifted in dramatic ways. Things once unthinkable are now unquestionable. Beliefs and behaviors once unimaginable now seem, well, normal. Christians who aren't discerning will quickly find themselves embracing things that are wrong. And that's why this book, Faithfully Different, is so important. And if you read it carefully, you'll find it so helpful. Natasha is a clear thinker, a captivating writer with a knack of explaining things most essential, like worldview and culture. Not only does she help her readers understand what they need to know, she helps them act in ways that are faithful to the truth. As parents of 4 kids, my wife and I have always been big fans of Natasha Crain's previous books. As someone who has spent the last 2 decades studying and teaching worldviews and culture, trying to convince Christians to take both of them seriously, I'm a big fan of this book too. Faithfully Different covers an incredible amount of crucial ground without cutting corners. It's one of those rare books that's both faithful to biblical truth and honest about our cultural situation, a work of sound cultural analysis from a solid and distinctly Christian worldview. And it's just so very helpful. Look, I hope you'll pick up a copy of Faithfully Different, Regaining Biblical Clarity in a Secular Culture by my friend Natasha Crain. And you can listen to her talk about the book and an interview with Shane Morris on the Upstream podcast. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.